The blame games in Spain and in the UK mainly with the Bane. These are the interesting times. Hello everybody, my name's Matt Johnson. Welcome to The Interesting Times, a show that takes a sidewise swipe at the political scene each week right here in the UK. As discussed on last week's show, travellers coming back from Spain will be required to self-isolate for 2 weeks on arrival. And the PM spoke about the reasoning behind that.
We're always looking at ways in which we can mitigate the impact of the quarantine, try to help people, try to make sure that the science is working to help travellers and holidaymakers. At the moment, we've got to stick with the guidance that we're giving. We've given the guidance now about Spain and about some other places around the world. I'm afraid if we do see signs of a second wave in other countries, it is really our job, our duty to act swiftly and decisively.
Help people? Act swiftly and decisively? Who are you? It seems the PM has had the apprentice-style makeover. The Spanish Prime Minister, however, a man that has the most Spanish name ever, Pedro Sánchez, was not happy about it.
Las decisiones que se han tomado en este caso por parte del Reino Unido son desajustadas porque hay muchos territorios en nuestro país que tienen una incidencia acumulada en lo que es el contagio del virus inferior incluso, no solamente a la media europea, no solamente.
However, the figures tell a different story. On the 27th of July, when lockdown was introduced, Spain's cases were over 6,500, up from the week before when it was still high at 4,500, the week before that at over 2,000, the week before that over 1,200, and the week before that, hang on, anybody else seen a pattern here? That's 5 weeks of fairly steep growth, and we introduced self-isolation with so little notice, it catches out the guy who's in charge of the department that implemented them. Well, it may be a different look and different tone, but for the Prime Minister, it's looking like normal service has resumed. What can I tell you, Boris?
You're fired.
Actually, I think this one is a bit more on the nose.
You're fired.
And just so we're clear, every other country gets second waves. We get hot spots. All right? A number of high-profile entertainers and MPs and other users, including myself, had boycotted Twitter after some anti-Semitic tweets by Wiley, who is apparently a grime artist, which is apparently a form of music. Wiley went on to apologise. Sort of.
I want to apologise for generalising, number one, and I want to apologise for comments that were looked at as anti-Semitic.
It's the first time Wiley is speaking following a dispute with his former music manager John Wolfe, who is Jewish.
Yeah, probably best not to have anti-Semitic views anyway, but especially if your boss is Jewish. For those looking for a change in their working environment, or indeed just a job, this one's for you. Boris the Johnson is looking for a spokesperson to head his daily briefings. Well, why doesn't he ask one of his cabinet, like... OK, well, not that one. No, obviously not. OK. Yeah, message received. Yes, we get it. Now, that doesn't really fit in with the behind-the-scenes pulling the strings vibe he's given himself. The ideal person for this job must have excellent risk management and crisis communication skills. Well, that's reassuring. The ability to tell people to remain calm as the UK starts to tailspin out of control to a no-deal Brexit. You'll presumably have to stand up in front of a nation and say things like this.
Clearly, this country has had a massive success now in reducing the numbers of those tragic deaths.
With a straight face, and then go home to find an angry mob has burnt down your house. Oh, and the ability to say, well, I don't know, about 20 different ways. Brace yourself. Boris Johnson was shown to have lied about child poverty, saying that it's been reduced since he came into power, when in fact it's increased. I know. Anyway, the papers weren't about to let him get away with this, and on Wednesday, The Independent ran with anger as Boris Johnson falsely claims child poverty has fallen despite huge rise. From the Mirror, Boris Johnson rapped by Watchdog after making false claims about child poverty. Even the normal pro-government Daily Mail weighed in with their headline about Boris's fibbing. Will nobody stick by our beleaguered PM? Well, when it comes to child poverty, you can always rely on the Daily Express to do the wrong thing. And they instead went with likely skirmishes between British and EU fishermen. Distracting us from an autocratic and morally bankrupt government. Another day, another section of society to blame. On Monday, we had the warnings of a second wave sweeping across Europe. And then on Friday, Tory MP Craig Whitaker decided to make it a two-pronged attack. Craig decided that the problem was Muslims going to each other's houses. Well, I have to tell you, Craig, white people have houses too. And despite all the evidence that if that's the case, other parts of the UK would also see spikes, he then went on Breakfast TV to double down on his theory. Oh, this is towing the Tory line. No numbers, no figures, no proof, just rhetoric and a random target to fire at. Sound familiar? By the way, he also mentioned that language might be a problem. Well, yes, I can see that. Because honestly, I'm really struggling to make sense of a word he says. Do you remember Esther McVeigh, Tatton's Conservative MP and former Minister of State for Housing and Planning? No? Do you want to ensure you never forget her? Yes? Well, good news! She took to Twitter to advertise a podcast. Before you show you this, just to let you know, this is a real thing.
All on board, and let's find our inner explorer. Let's go discover the UK, because this year it is the year of the great staycation.
Now, is it me, or is that the perfect analogy of the kind of vehicle we can be expected to drive after Brexit, when the Germans have slapped 40% tariffs on the Beamers and Mercs, and Nissan have taken the last remnants of manufacturing from the northeast? The only thing missing would be all the roads blocked with HGVs attempting to get through EU customs. And the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, was portrayed by the Conservative Party as being some sort of superhero in what is clearly a disgraceful piece of government propaganda. Sorry, did I say Conservative Party? I meant, of course, BBC. That's right, the Boris Broadcasting Company released a video of Rishi Superman Sunak flying through the air and singularly tackling and beating poverty, whilst a phony reporter talks about joining the Chancellor on the front line and help pushing our economy back up to prosperity. The BBC has subsequently pulled the video, citing that while we don't think that readers would take this at face value, on reflection we think the illustration struck the wrong note. But don't be too surprised by seeing Super Sunak. After all, we already have the Joker. Well, that's all for this week. I do hope you're enjoying these catch-ups. If you are, please make sure you don't miss another by hitting the subscribe and notifications bell. And I'll see you all next week. Take care.
Shaking hands continues. I was at a hospital the other night where I think there were actually a few coronavirus patients, and I shook hands with everybody. You'll be pleased to know, and I continue to shake hands. And I think it's very important that we, people obviously can make up their own minds. I think that Matt has said that people must make up their own minds.
I have, on occasions in the past, driven with my wife in order to make sure that that's the right way of putting it.
Well, Hugh, if people at home are struggling to keep up with the government's policy over quarantine for Spain, then they should take heart that major travel companies are too.
YouGov data shows only 36% of us are wearing a face mask in public places. Compare that to 90% in Singapore, 83% in Italy, 78% in France, 65% in Germany.
So have you asked people? This sounds really unclear
we have
to
asked.
me.
No.
Tell you what, I don't think my view is no. I think they're as confused as I am. Clarify it for us.
Who have been tested for COVID-19 so by over 200,000. Will you apologise for misleading the public?
I'm not aware of that report.
Should isolate for 10 days, not 7 days. This is at the same time on the 1st of August that some national restrictions are going to be further eased. Confusion reigns, isn't it? People are confused by what the national government is telling them to do.
Compared to other countries, we issued hardly any fines. Because we didn't need to, because people follow the law around. In this country, people do.
I think
think what I did was actually reasonable.
It's too difficult.
I suppose many of my viewers will think it's not a laughing matter.
I think...
You said the app was absolutely essential to this track and trace.
Don't do X or do Y. Well, I've subsequently got it. No, the point that I was seeking to make is that...
Am I absolutely certain that we won't be living with this for a long time? I can't say. We can turn the tide within the next 12 weeks, possibly in time for Christmas. I think that by the middle of next year, we will be well on the way. We'll be well on the way past it.
Quite right to treat people with the respect that their intelligence and their judgment deserves.
But it is the BME communities that are not taking this seriously enough.